NASCAR is expected to return to Bowman Gray Stadium for the Clash in 2026, and Corey Heim will make select starts with 2311 Racing in 2026. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and our motorsports story discusser today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brendan Poole's 2025 Midas scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. Scheme looks really great in my opinion. Love the black, love all the colors on it. Looks really good. Looking forward to seeing the racetrack this weekend at COTA. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Justin Allgaier's 2025 Brant Rev 1 scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. Honestly, not my favorite junior motorsports paint scheme I've seen so far this year. It does look alright. The colors look solid overall, but it's not my favorite junior motorsports paint scheme. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Ellis's 2025 Classic Collision scheme for this weekend at COTA. A different looking Classic Collision scheme. You've got a brownish looking color. Looks kind of very similar to some of the Texas colors we've seen before, but I think it does look really, really awesome. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Cole Custer's 2025 Bonanza scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. I think the scheme's alright in my opinion, but it's not my favorite scheme I've seen from the Haas factory team so far in 2025. There's some decent colors for sure, but it's not my favorite scheme from Cole Custer. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Alex Bowman's 2025 Ally Unrivaled scheme that we'll see at Homestead in a couple of weeks. I really love this paint scheme. You got two worlds colliding for that weekend at Homestead, and it looks really, really awesome. The colors look great. They pop. They look fantastic. Definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack in a couple weekends at Homestead. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Bilicki's 2025 Insurance King Reverse scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. I like the scheme quite a bit. DJM, I think, knocked this one out of the park. The colors pop. They do look really, really good. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at COTA. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Williams' 2025 Alloy Patriota scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. With it being Texas, I think it makes a lot of sense to use this one. I think the colors do look really good. Looking forward to on the racetrack this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2025 Guaranteed Rate scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. I am not a big fan of this paint scheme. The colors just don't work for me too much on this. The black and the white are contrasting way too much. But it's awesome the guarantee rate is back with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 2025. That's probably the only positive from this. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Ellis's 2025 Ford Loco scheme that I believe we'll see in 4 or 5 races in 2025, including at Bristol in about a month or so. I think the scheme looks really good. I love the colors on it. I think they brought Moohead on it as well, which I think that's really awesome for the trailer. It does look good. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at COTA. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Michael McDowell's 2025 Gamebridge scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. Very similar to the Justin Haley colors and Kyle Busch colors from the Craftsman Truck Series about a week or so ago at Atlanta, but I think it looks good also on Michael McDowell's car. Looks pretty awesome. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ross Chastain's 2025 Busch Light Texas scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA. I like the patriotic vibes on this car. It's got the horns on it. It looks really great. Kyle Sykes designed another really awesome looking paint schemes. I think this is one of the better ones we've seen so far from Ross Chastain since getting to Trackhouse Racing. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is John Hunter Nemechek's 2025 Pie Barker scheme that we'll see this weekend at COTA and many other races throughout 2025. There's not really many differences from the 2024 paint scheme, but I think this car does look really good. I think they knocked this one out of the park. It looks like a very solid looking one, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about 100 Days to Indy. As there was a report, I believe, by Nathan Brown on Monday early morning, the 100 Days Indy will be revamped to be called the 100 Days to Indy Road to the Championship. And it will be debuting on May 22nd on Fox Nation. Now, I think it's certainly interesting that they're changing it up going into 2025 as Fox wants to take this a little bit more seriously. However, going to Fox Nation, app that doesn't have as many people watching, I got to question that a little bit personally. I feel like that this should be going on something like Tubi or the Fox Sports app, or basically put it on somewhere where people are actually going to tune in instead of going to Fox Nation, which doesn't have a lot of people that have the app currently at the moment. But I do got to say that I think it's a good show. I've seen the show before, but it was on the CW, and I think it was working out pretty perfectly and working out in their favor. So I do question this move a little bit of changing it up, but I'm also not surprised to see they're changing up, considering sometimes we've seen Fox make some changes on that front, to be honest with you. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Consumer Cellular. As it was reported by Adam Stern on Monday late evening that Consumer Cellular is going to release a new limited IRIS Easy Flip number 6 phone that associates around Brad Keselowski's association with the Consumer Cellular brand. It will be available for only $20. Many of you have probably seen this Consumer Cellular phone on one of the most recent Aric Almirola videos from yesterday. And I got to say, I think having something associated Brad Keselowski is really awesome and really, really good. And I love the fact we're kind of getting back those nostalgic vibes of sponsor and branding working with NASCAR very closely. Now, we do, of course, have the driver acceptance program that came out very, very recently. But I do got to say, I think it's pretty cool. They're doing something like this, and I think it's awesome. We're doing some sort of flip phone with the number 6 one as well. I think it's awesome, and I love the percentage and the partnership they're doing with this, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Acceptance Insurance. As it was announced yesterday that Acceptance Insurance will sponsor Ross Chastain for 5 NASCAR Xfinity Series races in 2025, including this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. They're also going to be an associate sponsor for Ross Chastain for all of his races throughout 2025 as well. Acceptance Insurance, of course, has been associated with Trackhouse Racing 4 as a sponsor of Shane Van Gisbergen when he was at the number 16 for Call Racing in his select starts last year. I think that Acceptance Insurance stepping up and working with Junior Motorsports is really, really good. I wonder if they're going to have some association with SVG and his starts. We do know, of course, that Kubota is going to sponsor Shane at Watkins Glen later this year. I think the car looks really awesome. I do think it looks really good for sure. And I'm definitely glad to see that Acceptance Insurance will get the opportunity and chance to work with Ross Chastain for 5 races in 2025. Really exciting stuff, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Rockstar Energy. As it was announced yesterday morning that Rockstar Energy has officially announced that Lia Block has joined the family in the endorsement deal. She is the first female athlete to have been signed, I believe with maybe the first driver in a long time we've seen, that has been signed with Rockstar Energy. This is definitely very interesting considering her father, Ken Block, of course, had been associated with the Monster Energy brand pretty much throughout his whole entire career. Now Lia Block is going to work with Rockstar going forward. So that is certainly interesting, but I think it is a massive deal that Rockstar, one of the biggest energy drink companies in the world, is based in, of course, designers in GTA 5 and GTA 6. I think it's pretty cool that Rockstar has picked up Lia Block going forward. I think it's a big deal for the family, a big deal for the brand as a whole. Nonetheless, glad to see that Lia Block will get the chance and opportunity to work with the Rockstar brand going forward in some endorsement deals, and some of the branding will be associated with that. I think that's pretty cool that they're doing that with her going forward, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Connor Zilisch. As it was officially confirmed on Monday morning that the Red Bull diecast that Connor Zilisch will be using in his NASCAR Cup Series debut this weekend at Circuit of Americas has officially become available at Lionel. They've got the licensing to go from Red Bull, as Red Bull's been kind of up and down on letting licensing go in some of their things in the past, but now they're going to be allowing it for this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. I think it's really awesome because I think the Red Bull car that they're using for Connor Zilisch this weekend is one of the most beautiful looking paint schemes we have seen in NASCAR in the last couple of years. Obviously, Connor Zilisch is one of the favorites already going this weekend. When you look at the betting odds, he's the number 2 driver currently at the moment, just currently sitting right behind Shane Van Gisbergen for the win. And I think this Red Bull car is going to be super fast and strong. Of course, the Red Bull scheme has won Max Verstappen in Formula 1 many, many times, but I think it's awesome that the Red Bull car is finally going to be available for people to be buying from Lionel. I expect this to be very popular, and I do expect that a lot of people are going to go ahead and buy it going forward. And I think the car looks awesome, and it looks really great, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Formula 1. As there was a report by Adam Stern on Monday afternoon that Formula 1 is seeking a big increase from $85 million ESPN has been paying for the last couple of years, and they're looking to go from that to around $160 to $180 million in their next TV deal. Now, obviously, we know that ESPN will not be with Formula One going forward after 2025, as they basically have backed out in regards to contract negotiations going forward. Currently, at the moment, the favorites that could land it are NBC. I believe Apple TV was mentioned, and I also saw that Netflix was mentioned as well. I think that if we do see F1 go to Netflix, I think the F1 TV app is not going to be available in the US anymore because they're not going to want to see two streaming partners competing against each other. For me, I think NBC and Netflix are the two favorites to pick it up right now. I don't see Apple TV picking it up. I think Netflix, there's a chance it definitely could pick it up. Netflix is spending a lot more in regards to sports and all that stuff and doing a lot more sports activity. So I think that's something to watch out for there too. But that being said, I do think it's interesting when you look at Formula One and they're looking to do this where they're trying to go to two separate entities and two separate networks and trying to figure out what TV they're going to be doing for 2026. To me, it would make more sense to go to NBC, maybe do some stuff with Peacock. I think that's something that might end up happening for sure. But overall, when I look at Formula One, I think it's going to be interesting because we know Fox, they're not interested currently at the moment to pick up the TV deal at this point. Well, they're interested, but it seems like we're not sure who's going to get it. We'll see who ends up picking up TV deal. I think it's going to come down to NBC or it's going to end up going over to Netflix, in my honest opinion, when it comes to the next TV deal. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Henderson Motorsports. As Henderson Motorsports announced on Monday early afternoon the remainder races that they are going to run in 2025 in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. They have 8 more races scheduled, of course, for 2025, with their first race coming up being at Bristol Motor Speedway in a couple weekends from now. I think they announced a couple of races, like I think Homestead's on their schedule. I think they're going to run the season finale in Phoenix, I'm pretty sure, and a couple of the races in the middle of the year. One race they were looking to potentially do was go to Lime Rock, but because of Park Clearman's commitments with doing the Xfinity Series race at Atlanta Motor Speedway on the CW, that's why they're not running it unless they, of course, could have found a driver, which is a really good road course racer, to get behind the wheel of the car. We are going to talk about Henderson Motorsports here in just a short little bit in regards to what is going on with that team. But overall, when I think of Henderson, I think this team will be very, very competitive. And I think, especially with Parker, they're going to have chances and opportunities to win. They've been very competitive in the past. And I think bringing Park Clearman back into the fold for around 8 to 10 races this year, I think it was the best decision that they could make with Parker no longer being full-time. We'll see if they actually can win this time around and actually get a legal truck. Again, we're going to talk about Henderson just a short little bit for now, but I think it's good that they're going to be back running 8 more Truck Series races, and all those will be run by Parker Clearman. So really excited to see that Parker will be back with Henderson Motorsports for 8 more Truck Series races in 2025. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Carson Hocevar. As it was announced on Monday afternoon that Carson Hocevar is going to drive the 14 car for SS Greenlight Racing this weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Circuit of the Americas. This will be the first time that Carson Hocevar, I believe, has done double duty in his career, as I don't think he made a start in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2024. We also may see him run maybe some Select Truck Series starts also in 2025. Now, the reason Carson Hocevar is getting behind the wheel of the number 14 for SS Greenlight Racing this weekend is because Garrett Smithley has opted to sit out because he said it publicly in a video that he is not the best road course racer in the field, which I will honestly say he probably should be focusing on trying to get better at road courses. But if you're not the best and it's the best for the team, especially with how competitive the field is going to be this weekend, maybe putting a Cup guy behind the wheel like Carson Hocevar is not a bad option. Carson is a really, really good driver, in my opinion. We're going to talk about him a little bit more in this episode as well. But I think Carson is someone that could be one to watch out for. He's a very underrated driver and can get the best out of equipment and can do really well in underfunded equipment. So I think Carson has a chance and opportunity to get a top 10. Plus, he's been really competitive at road courses as well. So I think he's going to have a really good chance and a strong opportunity to definitely be very fast and very, very competitive this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. I like the car he's got. I think it does look really good, by the way, they're running the trophy tractor car. And I think it's, again, very awesome to see that he will get the chance and opportunity to drive SS Greenlight Racing. The team is kind of underfunded, but I do expect Aspire will help in some way, shape, or form. We'll see what he can do with the team this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Aiden McHugh. As it was officially announced Monday late evening that Aiden McHugh has officially been announced as the crew chief for the number 70 car for Cope Racing family for the remainder of 2025. The original crew chief, I can't remember exactly, but I believe he has left the organization team or has moved to a different position in the team. Aiden McHugh has been an engineer, I believe, in the NASCAR Xfinity Series over the course of the last couple of years, and I believe he's only about 29 or 30 years old currently at the moment right now. So he's a very young crew chief, because crew chiefs tend to be around that 35 to 40-year-old range in the NASCAR Cup Series especially. But Aiden has been working his butt off for the last couple of years to get these chances and opportunities, and now he's going to get to work with a team that, in my opinion, could be pretty competitive this weekend, especially with Thomas Annunziata. Thomas Annunziata is making his Xfinity debut with this team. Well, he's made a couple starts in Xfinity, but I do think that Aiden will have a solid chance and opportunity to definitely be doing really well with this team in 2025. And I look for the 70 team to even get a little faster and stronger, because I think Aiden's really good at what he does, and I'm excited to see what he can do this weekend with the Cope Racing family organization. Excited to see what Aiden will get to do with the number 70 team for sure this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Fox Sports. As there was a report by Nathan Brown from the Indy Star that Fox Sports, while they have not officially announced their pit road reporters for 2025, it is expected that it's going to be a rotation between Jack Harvey, Kevin Lee, Jamie Little, and Georgia Henderson, who are all expected to be on pit road throughout the 2025 IndyCar season. Now, Jamie Little is going to be a fill-in at least for the start of the season, but once the Indy 500 has concluded, according to Nathan Brown, she is not expected to be back working with Fox Sports going in the IndyCar side, as she, of course, will go be focused working with NASCAR going forward, or probably doing some truck series broadcasts, being in the booth going forward. So we may not see Jamie Little as much in regards to commentating truck series races, which would be the best for everybody involved. Georgia Henderson, of course, recently she just had a baby not too long ago, so she will be back doing pit road stuff going forward here, which I think that she is going to do a really good job. She's awesome at what she does on pit road. As for the rest of them, Jack Harvey, certainly interesting. I believe he's looking to do some IndyCar starts later this year, so interesting that he is going to be on pit road. Kevin Lee being brought back, great decision in my opinion. I think Kevin Lee is really, really good at being a pit reporter. It was unknown if he was going to be working with Fox going into 2025. Glad to see they're bringing him in for this year. And then, of course, Jamie Little. Jamie Little, I've said this for a long time. I may not rate her as a person leading a truck series commentary booth, but I think that Jamie Little is an awesome pit reporter, one of the best pit reporters in the motorsports industry. So I think it's the right decision to bring her on to work as a pit reporter. I think they've got a really solid pit road lineup. I think the TV commentary booth also with Will Buxton, James Hinchcliffe, and, of course, Thompson Bell is really strong also. A lot of it being with IndyCar Productions playing a role in that. But I think that their pit road lineup for this year is really solid, and it does look really good in my opinion. Glad to see they're bringing a lot of those people back from the NBC side of things as well, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the number 9 Junior Motorsports car. Now, we already talked about the fact that Acepas Insurance is going to be on that number 9 car for this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. But, of course, this weekend is going to be the first start for the number 9 car for Junior Motorsports in 2025. Ross Chastain is going to drive that car for 5 races this year, while, of course, we are going to see Shane Van Gisbergen make 4 starts in that car, with a season debut, I believe, coming at Mexico City in early June. Now, as for the number 9 chances to go to victory lane this year with those 2 drivers, they, of course, are going to have Trackhouse affiliation and support as well. I expect that car to be really strong and very, very competitive this week. And the Junior Motorsports team has been very strong in road courses. Now, the crew chief is a little bit inexperienced. I don't believe Corey O'Shea has done a lot of crew chiefing stuff in the past. But I do believe that this car will be really, really fast, and I think it will be super, super competitive this weekend at Circuit of the Americas. It would not shock me or surprise me if that 9 does go to victory lane. However, you do have to look at the fact that you're going to see Connor Zilisch in the field and William Byron's in the field, and you've got some other big names in the field that we're going to talk about later this week as well. But I do think that the number 9 car will be very, very competitive. It's also unknown if we're going to see any other drivers behind the wheel. Could we see someone like a Kyle Larson behind the wheel of this car, or even a Raj Crew if he's not driving the 17 car at the moment for Hendrick Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at this time. But I do think the number 9 car will be very, very competitive. I think it will do much better than what Brandon Jones did behind the wheel of the car. So I do like that the 9 is going to be back this time around. And overall, very happy and glad to see that the number 9 Junior Motorsports car will be there. It's been known to win a lot of races. It's been known to win a lot of championships. Very glad to see, nonetheless, that they are going to be bringing it back for 2025. And I think it's awesome that Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen are going to be in the cars. I think both those guys will have a solid chance and a pretty good opportunity to definitely go to victory lane this weekend and in the upcoming weekends later this year in that number 9 car. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Aric Almirola. As it was confirmed, and he confirmed it on his Instagram page a couple days ago, that he will once again be back in the number 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing for a few more races in 2025. His next scheduled race is going to be next weekend at Phoenix Raceway, and then after that, he'll run at Las Vegas after that. So he's got 2 of his other remaining 8 races officially confirmed and announced, because we did, of course, make his season debut at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I believe he finished in 2nd or 3rd at the end of the event, had a chance and opportunity to win in that number 19 car. Going to those next 2 races, Aric Almirola was actually really competitive at Phoenix the last time we were there, but unfortunately Aric Almirola got caught up in a wreck near the end of the race at about 80 or 90 laps to go in the event. And then at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Aric Almirola did compete in that race and wasn't super quick and competitive as we all kind of expected. But I do think that he will have a really good chance and opportunity to go to victory lane at Las Vegas. The mile half program for Joe Gibbs Racing has been good. This course is the former All-Star car that ran last year, the number 20 machine, and that car was really, really strong last year. John Hunter Nemechek and also Aric Almirola as well. I think Almirola is going to have a really strong chance and opportunity to definitely go to victory lane at these upcoming 2 tracks. And I think that Phoenix and Las Vegas are 2 really good tracks for Aric Almirola. He's been good in Cup competition there, and he's also been good at Xfinity competition as well. So I think both are going to be very strong, and I think, not both, but I think that Almirola will have a car capable of definitely going to victory lane, and I think he'll have a very solid chance and definitely a very strong opportunity to go to victory lane, as I do think before the end of the year, I do believe that Aric Almirola is going to win some races in that car. I think Joe Gibbs Racing, in fact, will be able to win a lot of races this year in Xfinity competition, depending on which All-Star drivers do, in fact, end up getting behind the wheel. I think Aric Almirola, though, has a really great chance and a strong opportunity to definitely pick up a couple wins and a couple victories in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2025, as I do think will be very strong later this year. Now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Carson Hocevar. Now, after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Atlanta Motor Speedway, there has been a lot of talk and conversation surrounding Carson Hocevar and his over-aggressiveness after the race had concluded. Many drivers throughout the race were really frustrated and upset with him, mostly notably Kyle Busch, who went on basically a tired rant against Carson Hocevar, basically threatening that he was going to wreck Carson after he made a move against Kyle Busch in the middle of the race. Then Ryan Blaney got turned by Carson Hocevar going to turn number 1, and Ryan Blaney was not happy. And then Ross Chastain was not very happy with the move that Carson Hocevar had made at the end of the event. Now, looking at this, Carson Hocevar, after the race had concluded, basically said he's not going to apologize for trying to go out there and win the race and win the event. Now, looking at the situation with Carson Hocevar, I think actually when I look back at the situation, there's really only one instance where Carson Hocevar really did anything wrong, and that's when he just drove Ryan Blaney going into turn number 1 and dumped him going into the turn. Other than that, I don't think that what he did to Kyle Busch and what he did to Ross Chastain was absolutely egregious. Now, that being said, you don't want to make the garage mad and really angry, right? But Carson Hocevar is doing what he's supposed to do, which is trying to go out there and win a race. And Carson Hocevar is a young driver, and a lot of these older drivers in the field, including his mentor, Ross Chastain, which I think Ross pulling Carson aside and telling him what is right is what is wrong, is honestly not the worst thing that he could be doing currently at the moment. He's trying to teach Carson what he should be doing on the track. But Carson going out there and saying that I'm supposed to be out there to compete for wins and I'm not going to apologize for anything, I really don't have a problem with that. Some people are probably going to have an issue with that, but I don't really have a problem with Carson Hocevar trying to go out there and give Spire Motorsports a victory. He had a chance to go and win. He was super aggressive, yes, but we've seen many drivers in the past get praised for being really aggressive on the racetrack. Some also not praised for some of their aggression, like Ross Chastain a couple years ago, but I think that the perfect person to work with Carson on the front is definitely Ross Chastain, considering the fact that Ross Chastain was in a very similar position that Carson Hocevar was in about 3 years ago when he was running in a lot of people and not making people happy. Now, people saying that he has never crossed the line before in the NASCAR Cup Series, that's not true. I don't think that's actually accurate. He dumped Harrison Burton under caution at Nashville last year, and there's been a couple other times where he's just taken people out. Like I think in Martinsville, he took out multiple drivers in the race, and also backing up, I think, at Watkins Glen during qualifying. Not the smartest choice he can make, because he made a lot of people frustrated and upset. But overall, I think most stuff that Carson did at Atlanta Motor Speedway was not overwhelmingly egregious. I think that Carson, like I said, his goal is to go out there and compete for wins and win a championship for the team. And I know that Spire is not at that point just yet, But I think in the near future, Spire Motorsports is going to be a team that is going to end up definitely being capable of getting that done. So when I think of the moves that Carson Hocevar made on the racetrack, I don't think they were super egregious, and I don't think that they were awful moves that he did make on the racetrack. So I think for Carson, he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, but I think eventually once he does get a little bit older and gets more experience in NASCAR Cup competition, I think some of the over-aggressiveness that he did put on the track, I think he's going to be able to refine that. Ross Chastain has been able to do that. He was really aggressive on the track, and while Ross Chastain's probably not been the same, he's matured a lot more, and he still won races. I mean, last year he won at Kansas Speedway and didn't really do anything to basically win that race. He got it fair and square. It does take some time to eventually get up there, and I think that Carson is going to win a race with the way he's starting off the season. He's shown some really good pace and speed. I think he honestly is an underdog going to the weekend at COTA, but I think for Carson, he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, but basically do it a little bit more smartly and not just run into people to win races or anything like that. If he's not running into people and being over egregious to go out there and compete and win races, I don't think what he's doing is overwhelmingly that bad. I get why some of the drivers aren't happy with him, including the older drivers. I think Ryan Blaney going over and talking to him after race, telling him to calm down a little bit, not the end of the world either, because Ryan Blaney had a right to be upset after getting turned. If I was Ryan Blaney, I would definitely be mad about that personally. But I think other than that, the Chastain and the Busch stuff, not too egregious in my opinion. But I think that he just needs to kind of refine some of that stuff and refine some of that nature. Once he does that, I think he's going to be someone to watch out for and could eventually be unstoppable, with Spire Motorsports looking to definitely get a lot stronger in 2025. And now we're going to head on to the first of two major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Corey Heim. Now, we talked about this on the channel a couple days ago, but Corey Heim, of course, has signed a development contract with 2311 Racing and will make select starts with 2311 Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2025, with his first race scheduled to be at Kansas Speedway, and will also be driving in many select races in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for Sam Hunt Racing in number 24 car, and of course 2311 Racing is going to help with that in a pretty major and really big way. Now, Denny Hamlin also did confirm on his podcast a couple days ago that he says that Corey Heim will run select races also for 2311 Racing in 2026. There was some conversation about potentially taking one of the drivers out for 2311 Racing going to 2026, but it sounds like that Bubba Wallace, Riley Herbst, and Tyler Reddick will all be back with 2311 Racing once again in 2026 as well. Obviously, Tyler Reddick has a long-term contract with 2311 Racing. I think it goes pretty much to the end of the decade at this point. And Tyler Reddick has been a championship contender the last couple years for 2311 Racing. So there was no chance and no possibility that Tyler Reddick was going to end up getting replaced. Some people said, what about replacing Bubba Wallace? Bubba Wallace last year just had a career year in the NASCAR Cup Series, 6 top 5s and 14 top 10s. Plus, Bubba Wallace started the year off really, really strong. He just picked up his first top 10 of the season. Plus, he did get a top 5 at the Clash a couple weeks ago. So, Bubba Wallace shouldn't be going anywhere. Plus, Bubba just signed a contract extension through 2026. I do know, trust me, that contracts can easily be broken. But I don't see Bubba Wallace going anywhere anytime soon in the near future. As to Riley Herbst, well, I think that Corey Heim probably should be in that car over Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst is bringing sponsorship and funding, and the big reason why they've got that third charter in the first place is because Riley Herbst's family helped get that money from Stewart-Haas Racing to help get that charter for Riley Herbst there. Now, what does this mean for the long-term future of Corey Heim? Well, Corey Heim obviously will be part of COTA program in some way, shape, or form over the course of the next couple of years. Does this mean that Corey Heim will be back with Tricon Garage in the Truck Series next year full-time? Not necessarily. I do think, especially with the fact that 2311 Racing is going to be helping him out in a pretty big way, I think that there's a very likely chance he'll be full-time with Sam Hunt Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series next year, with a lot more support and technical help from 2311 Racing going into next year. I don't want to see Corey Heim in the Truck Series anymore. He is way too good to be in truck competition. This should be his final year. He should be moving up, and personally, I think he should 100% be full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series. The reason he's not full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series currently at the moment is because he does not bring the sponsorship and funding that he is going to be needed to be a full-time driver, unlike a driver like Riley Herbst. That's why, unfortunately for Corey Heim, he is not full-time in that said series going at this moment. As for Corey Heim, I think it's good that he will make select starts, and I would have to think going into 2026, I would have to think that you are going to probably see him make more starts in 2026 than he did in 2025. This could be very similar to the Ryan Blaney situation, where we do see Ryan Blaney perhaps maybe make some select starts, what he did from 2014 and 2015, where of course he made select starts in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Penske, made select starts in Cup with Penske, before officially going up full-time in 2016 with the Woodburns. That could be the long-term plan going forward, because the problem for 2311 is they can't run a 4 full-time charter. They're only allowed 3 charters. Now, depending on what happens with the lawsuit going forward, that could definitely change the game in regards to that. But as for the future of Corey Heim, at least the big news here is the fact that Corey Heim is still going to be with the 2311 Racing family going into the future. But the big issue and thing I do worry about in regards to Corey Heim's future a little bit is the fact that he's not full-time in Cup competition. And so many drivers are making the move up, and it just blows my mind that someone who is super talented and really, really good isn't moving up full-time. Now, people are going to ask, well, what about going to Joe Gibbs Racing? There's a lot of beef between Ty Gibbs and Corey Heim. They don't really like each other. They don't get along. So that's one of the reasons why you have not seen Corey Heim make any starts for Joe Gibbs Racing in any of their series, despite the fact that I think he's a better driver than pretty much everybody that's over there that is full-time this year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, including Taylor Gray, who was his teammate in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series last year. So to me, in regards to Corey Heim, I wish he was full-time. I think we all want to see him full-time in NASCAR Cup competition. But again, it all comes down to the funding, and it all comes down to the sponsorship, among other things. So I really hope that they can figure it out going forward where he can be full-time, because I think one of the reasons that he signed the development contract in the first place is because he doesn't want to basically get scooped up by Ford or Chevy. They cannot lose Corey Heim. If they lose Corey Heim, Toyota is going to be in a lot of trouble. That's why they went ahead and signed this development contract in this development deal with Corey Heim, and that's why we are going to see him make select starts with Sam Hunt Racing this year, and that's why we are going to see him make select starts with other teams this year in the NASCAR Cup Series. I have a theory that Tricon, he might make a start with that team at some point this year as well. Tricon is expected to make select starts this year, so more starts outside of the Daytona 500, so we'll see who else he ends up working with in 2025, but I do think that Corey Heim will definitely be very competitive with this team, and I'm glad to see he'll make some starts once again, also with Tricon Garage in the 2026 season and 2311 as well. And now we're going to head on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Bowman Gray Stadium. As it was reported by Adam Stern on Monday morning that Bowman Gray Stadium is the early favorite to again host NASCAR season opening Clash exhibition race in 2026. Continuing on, NASCAR continues to meet with countries all over the world. There have been a lot of talk and conversation about going international, with the race potentially going to Interlagos and Brazil in 2026. This raised some questions in regards to NASCAR's future in regards to going international, but it sounds like that will not be the case for 2026, as they are expected to head back to Bowman Gray Stadium in the 2026 season. I think this is the right move and right decision if this is true at all. Bowman Gray Stadium hosted its first NASCAR Cup Series race in some way, shape, or form in over half a century. The last time they ran at Bowman Gray was back in 1971, when Bobby Allison recently was awarded a win and victory from that race at the end of last year before his unfortunate passing. Now, in regards to Bowman Gray, I think the event itself was really, really exciting, and I think it's good that NASCAR is wanting to keep the grassroots feel going forward. I hope this also may be the identity that they're looking at in regards to the Clash. Now, personally, I think Bowman Gray Stadium being the All-Star race in the future would be something that I would love to see. I think that it end up being the All-Star race down the road should be the way that we see things going forward, because I think that it would be a really fun track to host the All-Star race. But I think bringing it back for another year of the Clash absolutely makes a lot of sense. I think the first year was a major, major success. And I think for short track racing standards, it raced a lot better than what we saw at the LA Coliseum. I think the LA Coliseum was fun those first 3 years that they ran it there, but I think bringing it back and doing it at a track that is a known short track, that puts on really solid racing, it puts on a great show, and puts on a fantastic product, I think that it definitely does make a lot of sense to bring it back. Now, obviously, it would probably be the first weekend of February. In fact, it might actually be at the end of January next year at this rate with the way the schedule is being announced and being released. So it might be even earlier 2025-6 a little bit than it was in 2025. And the field really enjoyed it too. Many drivers in the industry were really excited about Bowman Gray being on the schedule. People like Kyle Busch, people like Austin Dillon. I think Denny Hamlin was happy about it. Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney were very supportive of Bowman Gray being on the schedule. So I think Bowman Gray coming back in 2026 is absolutely a no-brainer. So now we have to ask ourselves about the future and in regards to the international flair, because there was a lot of talk, conversation, like I said a second ago, about NASCAR potentially going to Interlagos or Brazil in 2026. I still think there is a chance and possibility that we could see a race in Brazil in the future in 2026, but the big reason why they did not go to Brazil for the 2026 year is because of the fact that it just would not have made a lot of sense in regards to travel. I think doing it, going like down to Brazil, maybe doing exhibition event in the winter would definitely not be a bad decision for the sport, but I think going down there 2 weeks prior to the Daytona 500, I think that would have been a little bit of a stretch. So I think keeping it in the area, and also that's the big thing, we talk about NASCAR trying to save the teams a lot of money. If you're not traveling to Brazil and you're going to Bowman Gray, which is like an hour away from the track, I think that is doing a really good job in regards to saving teams a ton of money, and it's saving a lot of the hassles while having to travel to a different part of the country like Los Angeles. I think the racing itself, though, was a major positive for the sport, and I think it definitely was a pretty big win as a whole, too. Now, in regards to NASCAR's international future for 2026, NASCAR does want to basically expand internationally. And we talked about this when NASCAR has been rumored to be sold recently, that they basically do want to go ahead and expand internationally, and they want to get that international expansion growing. There's been a lot of talk about NASCAR in recent years going to Saudi Arabia, to the COTA circuit around 2030 to 2031, which is only about 5 years away at this point. So I think that is certainly a possibility that we could see NASCAR go to Saudi Arabia down the road. But personally, I don't want that to happen, but I think with NASCAR talking about it, I think there's a very realistic possibility that could be something that NASCAR does down the road. I also do look at some other stuff that they're looking at too. I do know they've talked about going to Canada, and we were supposed to go to Canada in 2024, but unfortunately a lot ended up falling through in regards to NASCAR going to Canada. So I do think that there's some other tracks you do have to look at as well, right? You do have to look at maybe going to Europe, maybe going to Brands Hatch down the road, and maybe going to other parts of the world like Germany, going to like the Hockenheim circuit, maybe going to Le Mans in the future, racing at the Bugatti circuit. I think that is certainly a possibility as well. But in regards to the future of the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium, this definitely makes a lot of sense to me. I think Bowman Gray Stadium put on a really solid and a really strong product for its first event at the track, and I think bringing it back for 2026 is the best thing that NASCAR can do, in my opinion. So I'm really excited about this, and I think it's great to see that Bowman Gray will be back on the schedule more than likely in the 2026 year, in 2026 season. So I think Bowman Gray is a great track. I think it was a really fun track to go to. I know that there was a lot of rowdiness. I know the Wheel and Modified Tours, the Modified race they ran before was absolutely rowdy, but that's Bowman Gray 40, and the crowd was really into it, and I think that's a big positive as well. So I'm really happy to see this news that Bowman Gray Stadium is expected to be back on the schedule in 2026. Now, the question will be, will he be back in 2027, maybe as the All-Star race, and maybe put Rockingham as a points-paying race? That could be something that is certainly a possibility down the road, and once discussions happen on that, we'll probably talk about that on the channel. But I think there's definitely possibly this race could end up being an All-Star race. I don't want it to be a points-paying race because I think it's too short of a track to host a points-paying event, but I think a track as an All-Star race, I think that'd be really good, in my honest opinion. Glad to see Bowman Gray will be likely back on the schedule in 2026. So, that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What are your thoughts about Bowman Gray likely to be back next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts also on the fact that Corey Heim will make select starts with 2311 this year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In a couple hours from now, I'm going to have another NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple days. If there's any major news that does break later this morning, we'll discuss here live on the channel. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have the NASCAR Cup Series race picks, and also the Xfinity Series race picks will be coming out later this afternoon as well. I've got other content dropping this week that you'll be seeing on the channel, including reactions to qualifying for Xfinity and probably the Cup Series as well. And we should be having some other content dropping on the channel very soon as well here. We got a video on Honda coming soon. We'll talk a little bit more about Carson Hocevar and disqualifications, among other things. We'll talk about people like Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Clay Farland, Matt Benedetto, 23M Racing, Junior Motorsports, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, among other things, will be coming out on the channel very, very soon. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.